So there was a time in my life where everything was in shambles. Okay, my back was against the proverbial wall. Everything that could possibly be going wrong was literally going wrong. I was in this long-term relationship. I had stopped going to school 2 years prior because I had gotten pregnant, and then I ended up getting pregnant again, so 2 times over. Then I finally learned my lesson. So I had just had my second child. He was like a little over 6 months. I was ready to go back to school. I went and did my FAFSA, did all the things that I had to do, got enrolled, got accepted to U of L, go Cards. And I got my refund check. I used that refund check to pay the bills up for at least a month or two. And so all my significant other at the time had to do was maintain the bills. And that has never been a problem, him keeping a job before, right? So then lo and behold, he couldn't keep a job. Things started going really left in that relationship, like to the point where he was no longer in control of himself. And some, demons were in the driver's seat. And so it got to the point where I really had to make a decision, man. It was like this: electric, rent, car note, daycare. Literally everything was passed through, and then everything was in my name. Don't judge me. I already judged myself. And I just started going back to school. It was at the point like he didn't really want me to go into classes because he wanted me to be there to watch the kids, because we couldn't send them to daycare because the daycare was passed through, and he wanted me to watch the kids so he could go find work. And it was just like, it was a whole thing, right? It was a tussle. So it got to the point where it was like, I need help, right? And I've had God help me before, and I was at the time I was doing me, right? And so I felt like if I really wanted God to help me, and this was very time sensitive because I could not afford to be on the, literally and figuratively, afford to be on the streets with my kids. It was just a no for me, right? And I was like, okay, so this is time sensitive and I need God to help me. And the only way I know I can really truly ask him for help and expect the help in return is if I'm doing everything that I know how to do. And so a couple of the things that I was doing at the time, right, because it was really like a scroll, but I was like, I'm gonna stop doing the things that I know I'm not supposed to be doing, or the things that I know I wouldn't do if God was sitting right next to me, right? So I gave up smoking, cussing, and drinking. I wasn't really a big drinker, so smoking and cussing though, that was big for me. So cussing, for a lot of people, they don't really consider that sin, right? But the gag is, you wouldn't be talking to God like that, right? We don't even talk like that when we go into the church. And there's several scriptures where God is saying to watch your mouth. He says you must put them all away, right? And these things must not come out of your mouth, like obscene talk, vulgar talking, things of crude joking. Like, these things should not be coming out of your mouth. There's verses about fresh and bitter water can't come from the same mouth. Like, how can... And then some people want to argue, well, that's about cursing somebody, not actually cursing cuss words. Listen, if we let scripture interpret scripture, there's several scriptures where it says you need to watch your mouth. Like, you can't talk like the world. You can't look like the world. You can't be set apart and holy and sanctified and yet be a friend of the world. To be a friend of the world is to be an enemy of God's. One of the main reasons people are led astray is because they can't determine what is God and what isn't, because the church don't look no different than the world do. So it's like, what does the church have to offer me that I can't give to myself? For real, for real. I actually wrote a poem called Watch Your Mouth, like back in 2017. I'll probably drop that tomorrow, just as like a little refresher. But it matters to God, so it's important. If God says that we shouldn't be saying the things that we be feeling like it's okay to say because it's okay for the world to say those things, it doesn't mean that it's okay for us to say those things if we call ourselves being followers of Christ. It's one thing if we're not saved. It's one thing if we're in the world. It's one thing if we're not his people. But if we're his people and we're talking like the world, that's a problem.